Welcome to the Animation Podcast, an official podcast of FilmBook. The Animation Podcast is a weekly animation news podcast that reports on the latest animation movie and TV show news.
Oh, happy Thanksgiving, pilgrims, or Turkey Day, or whatever you want to call it. There's a whole bunch of different things to call it here in the United States, and I don't even know, many of you might not even be here, so this day might not mean much of anything to you, and I'm already a couple days late. So really, I'm ruining everybody's fun with this opening. But I just wanted to go in before I do the news and the announcements and the intro and whatnot. I just wanted to say how thankful I am for all of you listening, for all of you that comment and thumbs up. And, you know, there's not a lot of us. We're a small show. But it means the world to me that you do and that you come back each week. And I'm very thankful for FilmBook and the people that put together this website and get to post these things for me. They let me do what I love to do. And that's not everybody can say that. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you, FilmBook, and all that. And without further ado, let's go into the show. Welcome to the Animation Podcast. It is a weekly podcast about all things animation brought to you by FilmBook. My name is Ephraim. If you are tuning into the Animation Podcast for the first time, what I do on this show is I discuss the current week's animation news. You can find more about the Animation Podcast and its episodes on FilmBook, that's film-book.com, by using the search term The Animation Podcast, wouldn't you know? If you're listening to the Animation Podcast on iTunes or another podcasting service, please rate and review this episode. If you are listening to this podcast on YouTube, please like our episode, subscribe, and consider becoming one of our patrons on Patreon at patreon.com/FilmBook. Your support helps us create even more engaging content. So, we've got a lot of news today, and a lot of Netflix stuff, so when we get into the streaming platform stuff, I'm going to try and keep it quick and keep it moving, because there's a lot of releases and dates and things that I have to cover, but I wouldn't want to be, I'm going to set the big shadow, the overshadow everything tonight, is in top news, at least for me. This is as exciting as animation news gets. Damon Albarn has confirmed this week that Netflix is giving us a full-length GORILLAZ animated movie. Are you kidding me? Oh, stop the show right now, because there's nothing that's going to top this. Look, now, Albarn has been trying to get this thing made for years now, and as big as the band is, a full-length animated movie for adults that will be as experimental and weird as what that band demands, it's always going to be a hard sell for production companies. Last year, we had rumors about the contracts being signed, but we still didn't know where they were going to take it, what production company, what studio, if it was going to happen anytime soon. So to have him confirm that it's Netflix, of all places, a platform with the money and the size to take a risk on something big and weird, and at least the reputation, look, I've never worked for Netflix, but they have at least the reputation of letting big-name artists make the kind of art that they want. I think that this could be exactly the partnership that was necessary. And Albarn himself even seems to agree. In a guest appearance on an Apple Music podcast, on the Apple Music podcast, I'm sorry, he admitted that Netflix seemed like a good creative team. It's unclear what the GORILLAZ discography, what kind we're going to be getting on this film, if any at all. It could all be new music. That would be a likely path for them. It would seem strange for them to kind of haphazardly throw in classics like Clint Eastwood and Feel Good Inc., especially since both of those songs already have animated incarnations. But maybe a reimagining or a remix of those songs within the new context of the movie, that could be something that we might expect. Albarn has said on recording that he wants the animation to be something ambitious, kind of styling, sifting towards Studio Ghibli, perhaps not in style, but in terms of dedication and innovation, something like that. It's unclear when we might see or get any more info on this. Netflix itself hasn't even announced it yet, but the confirmation from the big man himself that we are getting this and that it's working with Netflix, that is so exciting to me. I've been saying for years, how desperately I wanted a Gorillaz animated movie, and we are getting one. I just cannot wait. Okay, in other top news, speaking of bizarre British cartoon characters, Peppa Pig was the highlight in UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson's most recent speech. The trick here is to figure out which one of these I'm calling a bizarre cartoon character. It's in a surprising, yet somehow not a surprising, very in-character move from Johnson. He referenced the children's cartoon character as a feat of British innovation and creativity, calling her a Picasso-like hairdryer pig. Which, I mean, he's not wrong. He's not wrong there. It's just very uniquely to him. And then he spoke very fondly about a trip that he took to Peppa Pig World. Granted, this is all like during a state address that he's making. The show, yes, and he went to Peppa Pig World. The show recently opened a new theme park. But he says in the speech, and I quote, this is what he says: Peppa Pig World is very much my kind of place. I don't know if this is exactly qualifies as animation news, but it didn't feel right to not include this in the top news section. Oh boy. Okay. And while we're talking about political titans of the Western world, it seems very apt that we should talk about the big studio titans. So let's talk a little bit about the big places, the big streaming platforms, Netflix, Hulu, Marvel, Disney+, all that stuff. This is mostly going to be Netflix stuff. I have one Warner Brothers thing, but I'm going to try and mix it up so it's not all that. But we got a lot from that. We got a lot from the Big Red N today. Okay, while Netflix is still on our minds, like I just said, I'd love to shine a spotlight on a new release from stop-motion pioneer Aardman Studios, who released their first ever musical short, Robin Robin, on Netflix this week. It's the story of a kind but naive little Robin who was adopted by a family of mice, and Robin so desperately wants to make her mice family proud, and so she is trying to defy her instincts to sing as a bird so that she can help her little mice family stay hidden and stock up crumbs for the holidays. And she hears that, at least from the trailer, that through Christmas magic she can make a wish and turn into a mouse. It's also, I think it's really sweet. I feel like I don't talk enough about kids movies and things like that, or at least I don't recommend them enough. I'm going to be recommending this much more later on in the episode, but I wanted to talk about this now just because it is a highlight. We're moving into the Christmas time. It's also Aardman's first time using felt textured animation. The film is channeling something like those older Rankin and Bass holiday specials with the signature wit and charm that Aardman is known for. And I think that's such an obvious style and studio pairing. I'm honestly kind of surprised that they hadn't attempted this before. The movie's gonna be it's already out. The movie is the brainchild of creators and directors Daniel Ojari and Michael Please. You might recognize both of those names from, they worked on another short called Alan Infinite, which was also stop motion. It's already out. I'm going to talk about this one more later, so I won't go too in depth. But it's really, really just a sweet, charming movie. And I say absolutely check it out if you can. Sorry, I'm reading my next thing. Okay. Also in the world of Netflix, and also in the world of stop-motion animation. Look at that. We got our first release date. We got our first images and a release date for Netflix's long kind of rumored stop-motion animation project called The House. It's like a 3-part anthology series. If you don't know about that, they've been talking about this one for a while. It's got really fancy directors like Emma DeSwaif, Mark James Rolls. Yeah, because they're doing it in 3 parts. So it's Emma DeSwaif and Mark James Rolls working on one, and then Pamela Beza doing one, and then Nikki Lindroth von Bar. All these names. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm trying to do my best with the names. She's working on the third one. And so if you don't know, it's like a 3-part anthology series about this sort of gothic dark comedy house. It's all stop motion, and there are 3 eras of families that live in the house. And from, at least, I didn't know this until I was looking at the article, but so the 3 families, one is human, and then in a second story, it is mice. They're all mice, kind of like Robin, I guess. And in a third one, they seem to be all cats. The animation is like, I'm such a big fan of stop-motion animation. I don't feel like I see enough of it or get to talk enough about it on here, but it's so cool. This stuff looks like, just, if you're a big fan of Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox, you would love this kind of thing. It's just, like, oozing with that sort of, I don't know, like that kind of dark, I guess I'm just saying dark comedy, but that's sort of, it's got some grit to it. It's got that kind of bleakness to it that makes it look very mysterious and charming and a little creepy. I don't know, I like this stuff. I like this kind of thing, and it's been a while since I've seen it done well. But yes, that is Netflix's The House. It's coming out on January 14th of next year, so we can all be excited to see what they're throwing our way. To take a break from Netflix, Warner Brothers gave us the first trailer for DC's League of Super Pets. I don't know I never watched the show as a young, I know this is based on a show, and they've got an all-star cast. From the trailer, let me tell you, it's about Crypto, the super dog, who's Superman's dog, if you don't already know. And Lex Luthor pulls off one of his evil schemes and takes the Justice League out of the way, and so it's up to Crypto and a new league of pets that are granted these magical powers. What seems by mishap, they form this little motley crew, and they have to take down Lex Luthor, as you might expect. The thing that was the biggest standout for me, because this seems to be hitting all the points that you would imagine, is that it's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is Crypto, and Kevin Hart is this other dog. What's the other dog's name? Let's see. I have it written down here. Oh, Ace the Hound is the other dog's name. And I guess I hadn't watched this stuff before, so maybe these are the characters that are always there, but I don't recognize a lot of them. But the fact that I don't know, if I was a fan of this series, I would feel kind of wary. Not to say that Kevin Hart and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson are bad actors by any means. I think they're great, and they work off of each other very well. But I would say that when they are in a project together, it's usually marketed and sold and kind of written around just the two of them and their banter. It's hard to tell from this trailer alone, but it could veer into that. So I don't know. I think maybe I mean it's got other big names. They've got Kate McKinnon and John Krasinski as Superman, and they've got Natasha Lyonne and Diego Luna, and Keanu Reeves is, I guess maybe he's Lex Luthor. Who would he be? I guess so. I have to I really had to look at the information on this one. But yeah, no, that's like, I don't know. It's hard to hear Dwayne Johnson's voice coming out of Crypto the Super Dog. I don't know what I expected the dog to sound like, but it wasn't him. Okay, lastly, I'm running behind already. A couple more announcements. DreamWorks has given us an announcement for Trolls 3 that will be coming out in 2023. This was totally expected. I mean, as I know, Trolls 2 World Tour was kind of critically panned, but that made a bucket ton of money. That made so much money. It does not surprise me that they would be that they would be. I mean, what do they have written down here? It made over 100 million in PVOD platforms. Yeah, and it was 47 million globally. But that was also because the coronavirus shut that down. So there's a lot more. This whole thing is a franchise that just won't stop. So they're really going for it. We don't have any more information. Oh wait, we do. We have November 17th, 2023. That will be the release date. Don't hold too tightly to that. I mean, that's still 2 years down the line. There's plenty to make that liable to change. But we have that. And then, in more kids show news, I'm just going to read a couple more of these. PBS Kids gave us a look at their Holiday Classics lineup for this season. We have Charlie Brown Christmas. They do that every year. That's, but, you know, if you want to watch it, it'll be there. Then they have Nature Cat, A Nature Carol. Curious George, A Very Monkey Christmas. The Cat in the Hat knows a lot about Christmas. That's another one. We have Let's Go Luna, Luna Christmas Around the World. I don't know Let's Go Luna very well. But we have Peg the Cat. People like Peg the Cat holidays. They have actually a couple of different ones for Peg the Cat. They have the Hanukkah problem, the Christmas problem, and the Penguin problem. So if you're a big fan of that, check that out. They have a bunch. Oh, they have Wild Kratts, a Christmas special. That's going to be an hour special. And then we have an Arthur's Perfect Christmas, which I love. That was my favorite Christmas movie growing up. Maybe not my favorite, but like at least from PBS Kids. I loved the Arthur's Perfect Christmas. I thought that was great. Setting sail on over to Japan for our anime news. Let's see, we have fans of the very aptly titled light novel series trapped in a dating sim. The world of otome games is tough for mobs. That's the entire title, folks. They will be pleased to hear that they will be getting an anime adaptation of in April of next year. For those who don't know, Trapped in a Dating Sim is about a dude named Leon who finds himself reincarnated into a dating sim video game with a grueling difficulty. It's in the world of the game, the women rule with kind of an iron fist, and only the most handsome and charming men have a chance at reaching any heights. And this would normally spell doom for Leon, or somebody like me, except for the fact that he has played the game before and remembers all of the tricks to winning over his lady oppressors. The new series will be directed by Kazuya Miura and Shinichi Fukumoto. They're creators of shows like Uzaku-chan Wants to Hang Out, and Full Drive. There's actually a lot of Full Drive alums doing this. We have Kenta Ihara as the head writer, and then a character designer. For character design, we have Masahiko Suzuki. So, I mean, if you're a fan of Full Drive, or if you're a fan of the novel, or if you're just a fan of shows with titles that explain the plot, this might be a series that you want to check out next year. And in news that actually will probably give a lot of people some hope who felt the itch of 2 years without conventions, I'm happy to report that this week, Tokyo Big Sight announced that they will once again host the Anime Japan Convention, meaning a return to live events for the festival come this weekend. Not this weekend, but the weekend of March 26th and 27th of 2022. Last year, the convention did a very admirable job of translating all of its panels, events, and merchandising to an online kind of Zoom format. But I don't doubt that a return to in-person events is going to be really well-received and exciting for fans and festival workers alike. This year, the website has been updated to include a new form where convention-goers can vote on properties that they would like to see animated next year, as well as other exhibitor applications. So you can vote for if you go, you can vote for what you're going to want to see next year. I think that's a really cool idea because I'm sure the ones that get the most votes will probably be picked up for some kind of adaptation. So start getting your tickets now, because I have a feeling that this thing is going to sell out fast. I'm not going to be there, but I'm sure someone like me will probably be there, and that's just as good, really, if not better. Okay, what do I say? Oh, lastly, the numbers are in. After last week's release of the new Pokemon remakes, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, we have gotten the sales reports, and the most recent iteration of the Pocket Monster catching game is officially the best-selling game for the Switch since Animal Crossing: The New Horizon took the world by storm during the pandemic. While this isn't really exactly anime news. This is the first trumpet signaling the onslaught of Sinnoh-based Pokemon media and merchandising coming our way. So get ready for new seasons of the anime, likely including reappearances of fan-favorite Pokemon like Piplup and Chimchar and Turtwig, and characters like Dawn, as well as more cards and plushies, and the eventual release of the Legends Arceus is coming out in early 2022, I think. I have no shame in admitting that I'm a huge Pokemon nerd. I will get just about any game they come out with, even if it's not good for the franchise. And I'm already well into this new one. I mean, look, whether or not it's healthy for the company to maintain this precedent of one game every year, it's clear that they are doing very well financially, and they are being rewarded for it. So, look, they're going to keep doing it until it doesn't work for them anymore. Okay, looking at Around the World Animation, from Around the World in Animation, there is one indie animated film that is scaling new heights and towering over the rest of Europe this week, and if you have been paying attention to any cartoon journalism, you will likely already know what I'm about to be talking about by my use of puns. Yes, it is The Summit of the Gods. And I'm going to be talking about this one more later on. But Netflix, again, has recently picked up the indie about a photojournalist and a renowned Japanese climber attempting to scale Mount Everest and solve many questions that are hidden and in its peaks. The movie is coming out to the streaming platform on November 30th, but in a move that's exciting for any indie and foreign animation lover, the film is already now getting a limited theatrical run in select theaters around the U.S., which is already carving itself out as the next Oscar contender to beat against critic darling and documentary powerhouse Flea. The Summit of the Gods is an exciting collaboration of sorts. I mean, it's based on a manga it goes by the same name, by writer Baku Yamamakura and illustrator Jiro Taniguchi. And the film is going to be directed by Patrick Imbert and written by Imbert with Jean-Charles Osterero and Magali Puzol. I'm getting good at these names. When you partner all of them up with the producers like Damien Didier Brunner and Stephen Roylance and Thibaut Ruby. Thibaut Ruby's going to be in the EP role. Also not so confident about that name, so I spoke too soon. But the film is going to be a co-production from Luxembourg and France, and it's based on a Japanese story. So again, another cross-borders collaboration that we can all get excited about. So far, the movie is a hit with the critics, which isn't all that surprising, as many of these filmmakers listed have very impressive resumes. And the film is also coming from Mulisine Productions that gave us Wolfwalkers last year. So that also makes a lot of sense. So if you can catch The Summit of the Gods in a theater, I'd recommend doing so as a film that tackles the subject matter about scaling scaling Mount Everest. It's kind of begging to be seen on a big screen. But if you cannot watch it, it's coming to Netflix this coming week. It is so good. I'm going to recommend it at the end of the video. But moving on. In home video and digital HD releases, in the Blu-ray category, Sony has given us new info on the special edition Blu-ray release of The Mitchells vs. the Machines. The movie will be available for purchase on December 14th, 2021, and will include a host of special features and technical specs such as the complete filmmaker's commentary, an all-new mini-movie, Dog Cop 7, the final chapter, which, if you remember from the movie, that's what Katie, the main character Katie, is making those movies about her dog as a youngin'. So we're going to finally see what that film that she was making on looks like. It's also got 20 minutes of deleted scenes, and there's a lot more that I'm not going to list off here. But it's a lot of the time studios slap on special edition on a Blu-ray just to make it a quick buck. But I will tell you this, with the amount of content on this thing, it's very well deserving of its special title. Also, in Blu-ray and DVD news, on the more artsier side of the spectrum, comic book writer turned filmmaker Dash Shaw had his animated movie, Crypto Zoo, and it's now available on demand and on Blu-ray. The film won the Innovator Award at the 2021 Sundance Film Festival, so it's definitely going to be out there. It's also worth mentioning, now that I talk about it, in the modern era, the site, calling it Crypto Zoo refers to cryptozoology, like the study of cryptids and monsters. It's not like a zoo for cryptocurrency. I figured maybe I ought to specify that. Okay, but that's it for home video and stuff like that to keep on track of. Again, we're moving into holiday stuff, so maybe I will remind you next week what's coming out, because there's a lot that's coming out this time of year that I've already talked about, but it's worth reminding. But lastly, I want to talk about the last film that we had to review from Animation is Film Festival. It has been a wild ride, guys. Just before I go into it, we watched 5 films, and we've covered them these last weeks. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself not having a film to watch from this festival. And it's funny because it ended like over a month ago, but I don't know. I really was happy to do this. The last film from Animation is Film Festival that we are reviewing is Josep. Some general stuff, directed by Aurel. His name is Aurélien Froment. He's a French cartoonist, but he's making his directorial debut. But if you're French, you know this guy. He's a very big political cartoonist. Great style. It's written by Jean-Louis Mélicy. He wrote Lino and A Place Where the Heart Is. A Place Where the Heart Is has a French name. I just don't know what it is. And it was produced by Sergi López. And it's starring Sergi López as Josep Bartoli, the main character, Josep. And then Gerard Hernandez as Valentine's grandfather. Valentine is the boy. He doesn't have much to say in this, but Valentine's grandfather is a guy named Sergi, who's the story is kind of about. And then we have Silvia Perez Cruz as Bertilia and as Frida Kahlo, and what's really cool is that Cruz also did the music, which was spectacular in this. But I'm gonna go right into it. I'm not gonna even try and keep you guys in suspense with this. Right off the bat, I feel 100% confident in saying that Josep was my favorite movie that I watched from the Animation is Film Festival. I didn't even get a chance to watch Flea, so before I get my very first firestorm in the comments, keep in mind I haven't seen the other big heavy hitter, but holy cow, is Josep good. I mean, part of me doesn't even want to break the film down into pieces in an attempt to review it, solely because I want to hold on to this feeling of its magic. I mean, just saying that the film is really, really good is not going to be enough to entice you to go and watch this French film that you've probably never heard of. So I'm going to try my best to capture a portion of what Josep creates and give it to you right now. It feels appropriate in a weird cosmic sense that I review this film the week after I'm reviewing The Crossing. Both are French films about refugees, which was sort of the theme of the festival. Not like scheduled-wise, but just that's what people wanted to write about. But while The Crossing was a story that was this huge odyssey, Josep finds its narrative in suspended people and the very fine details of their limbo, which is a calculated tip of the hat to the real-life Josep Bartoli, whose life's work was depicting with painstaking detail the life that he lived and others lived in concentration camps. The movie is a biographical look at Josep Bartoli. He was, if you don't know, he was a Catalonian political cartoonist, and he was a revolutionary writer. He was a lot of things, but he was an artist through and through. As he survives his time detained in a French concentration camp through the months leading up to the Second World War. People often associate those camps like that with just the Jewish people being persecuted by the Nazis. But the practice of trapping people, and specifically refugees, in labor facilities was sadly it has a very long history. And you could kind of argue that it still is happening today. That's for a different kind of podcast. But Josep had escaped from Spain in the aftermath of the Spanish Civil War, where the nation fell under the dictatorship of Francisco Franco. However, the freedom that he had hoped for in France is not at all what he was promised, as, like many others fleeing revolutionaries and Spaniards, he was forced into the inhumane conditions of a concentration camp set up by the French so as to not look like they were supplying asylum to neighbors' escapees. And while in the camps, Josep is beaten and starved and made to witness the deaths of his comrades, but finds himself befriending a guard who looks out for him and supplies him with paper and pencils. And it is through this unlikely partnership that Josep is able to make some of his best work. Later in the film, we see moments later on, after the war, where there's a brief romance between Josep and world-famous painter Frida Kahlo, and that's explored, but the meat and potatoes of this film is that of Josep surviving in the camps. And one thing I want to mention about this story before I talk about the animation and move on, is the way that the narrative is able to paint life in these horrible, horrible circumstances with so many different colors, which is ironic, since part of Josep's character arc in this movie is learning how to use color in his artwork. We see the expected atrocities from captors and the living conditions, but there are many moments of quiet peace and even celebration. The movie insists that these people were not just victims or survivors, like many other films with this subject matter are really keen to rely on, but rather they are fully human beings. They laugh, they bleed, they get horny, they fall in love, they dance, which is what the actual artist, Bartoli, was so dead set on conveying as well. And the movie is successful. It's a very successful pull that it pulls that message off. As when we see these people with so many different shades and what they are put through, when they are put through that devastation that the camps put people through, it's even more painful, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm kind of rambling. But, anyway, the animation in Josep is really something to praise. While it's not as daring and innovative as something like The Crossing, it still manages to set itself apart from the sea of 2D animation by staying very true to the style of Director Aurel's political cartoons and to the actual artwork and sketches of Josep Bartoli. The fact that this is a directorial debut is also something. I mean, this is Aurel's first movie that he directed. And it's really something to marvel at. And I think that if Aurel continues to work in this direction, he's really somebody to keep an eye on, at least in French film. And, all around the world. I don't want to limit him to just that. But the characters are not true to life in their look. They don't look realistic, but their designs and their faces have such an effective yet simple way of conveying absolutely everything a character is feeling. You can't help but fall in love with the look. And there's a heavy chicken scratch kind of outlines, the feeling that the world is jumping right out of a sketchbook. And they have these simple dots for eyes that rest in darker shades and blushes of skin tones. It's really a fascinating way of reimagining the human face. Because they don't have, circle eyes, they just have the pupils and they rest on the eye is conveyed through the color of the face. I think it's really cool. If you look it up, you'll see. Alright, a couple more things. There are also several slight changes in the animation style throughout the film, which I think are incredibly effective. When the story is a memory, as much of it is, characters will sometimes fade or shift into the next position as opposed to fluid animation. Just as one would forget the non-important in-betweens, but remember where they were and what they were doing. I think the memories also live in these sandier colors, outlined usually with darker blacks or more muted tones. Not only because the moments have aged with time, but because the only way anyone would know of this story is through the black and white drawings on Joseph's manila notepads. I think it is so smart. This is juxtaposed with the extremely fluid and colorful animation that takes place in present day, as the guard who acted as Joseph's protector tells the story to his grandson. It's a narrative device that could have been really annoying if they had too much focus was given to these kind of peripheral characters. But thankfully, Aurel and Melessi know exactly how much screen time to give them so that it feels balanced. I really cannot recommend this film enough. The voice actors are spectacular. The music is engaging. I love that it's only 74 minutes. I think that's incredible how much they got in with such a short runtime. I'm going to give this 4.5 stars with it very teetering into 5. If you really wanted to twist my arm, I would probably say 5. I don't think Josep is streaming anywhere, but if you can catch a screening of this, I highly recommend you do. I really, really do. I was incredibly moved watching it. I was very thankful that I got to watch this one. Okay, that's the end of my review. I'm already at 34 minutes. Okay. I am gonna quickly recommend the two again that I told you guys about. Please, if you could, I highly recommend this week you check out Robin or The Summit of the Gods. The Summit of the Gods is really, really cool. I mean, the way that I don't want to say too much because it's a mystery and there's so much there in it. But it's this, just like the artwork alone, the style of it, and them climbing that mountain, you feel like you're there. You know, I'm lucky, I live in a major city, so am able to catch a screening of this. But, you know, next week, really, it's coming to Netflix. I highly recommend you watch it. And look, in the meantime, you can watch Robin. It's short, it's whimsical, it's so much fun. The actors really give this world. It's all that stuff that you love from like Rudolph or Frosty the Snowman. It just feels like it's totally back in this. And it's short. It's a short. So check it out. I totally recommend it. In the meantime, while you're waiting for The Summit of the Gods to hit Netflix. Okay, that will be my recommendation for this week. Thank you. I'm going to finish it up now. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Animation Podcast. Be sure to like this episode and subscribe. You can find more of my work on FilmBook. That's film-book.com. Just search for Ephraim Bernie or the Animation Podcast. And you can also find me on Twitter at Frumblers or on Instagram at Ephraim_burning. If you would like to contact us, you can email us on you can email us at podcast@film-book.com with the Animation Podcast in the subject line. And until then, tune in next week for the latest episode of the Animation Podcast and all things animation, clearly. Thank you for listening. I'll see you then. And again, happy Thanksgiving if you had one. And if you didn't, happy Thursday to you.
Thanks for listening to the Animation Podcast. Find more of the Animation Podcast on FilmBook, on your favorite podcast service, and on YouTube.